Our next speaker, I had the pleasure of meeting Nadine at a Paso coach education event last summer in Puerto Rico, and immediately got a sense of passion, which is a recurring theme here today, of course, and commitment to coaching. Nadine is the manager of coach development for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. She blends her passion for coaching with an experiential learning facilitation style to create coach development workshops, courses, and presentations that are unique, practical, and purposeful. Nadine collaborated on creating the 6 guiding principles of the USOPC's quality coaching framework and uses this as the basis for all of her coaching work. Nadine earned a BS in athletic coaching education from West Virginia University, an MA in sports psychology from California State University, Fresno, and is currently pursuing her education doctorate in coaching and teaching studies at West Virginia University. She was a competitive gymnast and has coached and judged gymnastics at various levels over the past decade. Today, Nadine is going to be speaking with us about communicating with athletes. The title of her presentation, Cueing for Performance, What You Say Matters. Let's welcome Nadine Dubina.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. I really appreciate that introduction. And I just want to kind of start off by taking a minute to just say thank you for allowing me to speak on this platform. I know a lot of my mentors are speaking here, and so it's really cool to be amongst them. And then everybody who is on the other side of this screen, I'm really grateful for you guys also giving your time. I know that our time is really valuable, so you being here to listen, grow, and learn really means a lot to me, and I really, really love this subject. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen now. All right, and I think we are good to go from there. All right. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so you guys just got a bit of an introduction from Wayne on what I do, but I thought that I might start this off with going into a little bit about why I do what I do. And I'm gonna thread this throughout the presentation today. So for me, I really believe in the magic of light bulb moments. Okay, so I believe in sparking a connection between our mind and our bodies and our logic and our intuition. I think that with every spark that we create, we illuminate our journey and the journey of others alongside of that. So I'm going to be using this light bulb theme kind of going out throughout this presentation because it means a good amount to me. And I think you'll see how it kind of fits in nicely. All right, so starting off with a black screen because I am going to take you a little bit back into a moment of my coaching journey when I was on the other side learning from somebody else, just like you guys are here today. And so I want to ask you guys if you've ever experienced a moment in your life when you've been stopped frozen in your tracks, the wind has been knocked out of you, and it hasn't been from a physical hit, it's been from a question. So this happened to me about 5 years ago, and it was when I was learning from a now mentor and friend, Dr. Nick Winkleman. He's a high performance coach, high performance director, and also has his doctorate as well. So he's a researcher as well. And I was at a 2-day coaching summit, and he had just gone through his kind of idea on how he breaks up learning. And so he breaks up learning into 2 different categories. He says it can go into programming and coaching. Okay. And so the way that he explains programming is similar to the body and engine of a car. Right? So this is what we do in our coaching, and it includes all of our drills, our exercises, our skills conditioning. It's all of the physical stuff that we have our athletes do. Okay, and then the coaching side of it is going on and working with the actual athletes to teach them how to drive this car, right? It's teaching them how to actually manually work all of that physical stuff. So this has to do with how we coach. It includes our meetings, our goals, our cues, our questions, kind of everything, our video reviews, everything kind of in that paradigm. Right. And so during one of the breaks, I went up to him because my mind was just going 100 miles a minute about some of the athletes I was working with. And during the thing, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm having these problems. I'm really having trouble connecting to these athletes. I don't know why they can't connect with me. They're crumbling under pressure all the time, and just kind of on and on and on and on and on. And the question that he asked me that kind of blanked me out was that, have you ever considered how you might be contributing to this? Essentially, he was saying this might be a coach issue and not an athlete one. And so he did this in a very nice way. But essentially in that moment, my world stopped in the best possible way. Okay, I was baffled for a couple of minutes, not really knowing how to answer. And so he thankfully, graciously kept going and explaining himself. And essentially what I was able to get out of this was that throughout his 2 days, I got to learn not only what to say, but how to say things, when to say things, when I should push back, when I should pull forward, kind of all the things that go into it. And what I really learned, the biggest light bulb moment for me was that I was the center of the coaching instead of the athlete being the center. Okay, so I was physically in their car driving it for them because all of the coaching was coming from me. It was all in my language. It wasn't in theirs. I was using my words for what made sense for me. And so it was really this kind of revolutionary kind of shift in my psyche that I really had to make sure that I was preparing my athletes to drive their own cars because they're the only ones can do it when they're out there on the field. And so what I want to bring with you here today is that I want to share one small piece of the language of coaching puzzle, and specifically it's going to be in the cueing landscape. Okay, so whenever we talk about coach communication, there's kind of these specific moments that go around whenever we're doing skills or reps or sets with our athletes, and you all know them because we all do them all the time. And so basically there's these 5 steps. You describe something, you might demonstrate it, and then we're pretty much cueing it, the athlete's doing it, and then we're debriefing it, and on and on and on and on, right? And so what we're specifically going to look at today, because there is so much in all these different moments that we could go into, is we're going to look specifically at the cueing and doing phase. So what this means is that we're going to be looking at focusing on the cues used in the moments right before and during movement. So true to my experiential kind of learning style, I'm going to ask you guys to do something with me here in a moment. Okay, so what do I mean by coaching cues? Let's get us all on the same foundation here. So coaching cues is simply just words that carry an internalized meaning that lead to some desired movement outcome. Okay, so we're giving athletes words to achieve a goal that we want to achieve when they're moving. Okay, they're the last ideas we put in our athletes' heads before they move. So if we go back to that car analogy, they're almost like the key in the ignition to turn on the car. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to do a little bit of movement with me if you're able to. Okay, so I'm going to give you a series of 3 coaching cues. And if you're able, go ahead and just act them out with me. I want you to pay attention to what you feel in your body or envision in your mind whenever I say these cues. Okay, so the first one, raise your arms over your head. Cool. Now bring them back down. Second one, reach towards the sky. Cool, might have did a little bit something different there. Maybe not. Third one, bring them back down. This time, I want you to reach up just like you lost hold of a balloon that's about to fly away. Did you reach the quickest and the highest on the balloon cue? If so, that's what I was trying to go for. Okay, so just by stating a few words, Your motor cortex in your brain is able to actually interpret the meaning of the words in your cues and send signals to your body to actually carry out that message. Okay, so we'll come to learn what some of the different cues are here in a moment. But the cool thing is that our motor cortex actually interprets different words differently. So we're going to learn which ones are more helpful and unhelpful in different situations. So let's look at cues. So there's two categories of cues, internal and external. I like to think about this as existing on a continuum, and you're either zooming in on the internal side or zooming out on the external side. So internal cues simply have a body focus. If you have a cue and it relates to a part of the body, it is internal. So examples of this is like extend your hips, squeeze your glutes, pull your shoulder blades back, tighten your abs, anything that focuses on the body. External is the opposite, and it focuses on anything either in the environment or as a part of the outcome. So this is something like jump higher, skate towards the boards, reach for the sky, push the ice away, be strong as steel. You allow the body to orient based on a goal you're trying to achieve. The good thing about this is that if you're using these cues, you can say the same thing with each one. So if I were to use this picture of this skater, Vincent, I could say for an internal cue, Vincent, get your chest against your thigh, right? That's internal because it's for the body. The outcome would be, the external one would be, Vincent, I want you to get low like you're ducking under a railing. Same outcome, different way of saying it. So here's a gold medal question for you. Which type of cue, internal or external, should be the last idea you put in your athlete's mind before performing a skill? You only got two choices. The answer is external, and I'm going to explain why now. Okay, so I want you to think about movement patterns like a bicycle chain, okay? And so when the chain is aligned and in order, it's going to easily perform its job, making the wheel spin rather seamlessly. It feels effortless to the rider. However, if there ever gets a chink in the chain, then it's going to get thrown off of its track. It becomes clunky and uneven, and eventually the wheels are going to stop working altogether. Movement patterns in our brain work in a similar way to the bicycle chains. So, external cues release the motor system to allow the body to self-organize to a preferred movement solution. Internal cues, on the opposite end, constrain the motor system by focusing on a simple part at the expense of the complex whole. Okay, now there are over 160 studies, and it has conclusively proven that external cues are superior for movement performance when compared to internal cues. Here's the superhero of external cues. They're analogies. Analogies are one of the most powerful ways to basically supercharge your cues, okay? Because they help us make meaning out of something that's unfamiliar to being familiar, okay? So let's work through an example together. So I'm just gonna look at a 100-meter sprint and go through a couple of different cues for it with analogies to help you see how this might really make your cues more colorful. So if we were talking about posture in a 100-meter sprint, you might say, gradually rise like the jet off of a runway. Be the jet. For a knee drive, you might say something like, drive your knees forward as if to shatter a pane of glass. Shatter that glass. Finally, to push off your foot, you might say, strike back and rip up the track. Rip it up, right? You can kind of see how the brain starts creating these patterns almost automatically from this image. It creates just this really kind of rich learning environment. So we're gonna go back and do one more quick little activity so that you can really see these coaching cues in action. Now that you know the 3 types, we're gonna go through 3 more. If you can, go ahead and stand up for this one, okay? So for this one, again, I want you to pay attention to what feels the best for you. Okay, thinking about that bicycle chain. All right, so for this one, I'm gonna want you to pretend like you're standing on top of a box. You're not actually going to, just pretend like you're standing on top of a box. And what we're gonna focus on is jumping and landing in a squat position, okay? So for the first one, I want you to jump and try to absorb the ground as you land. Go ahead. Cool. Pretend like you're back up on your box. This time, jump off and land with your knees and ankles soft, hips backwards. Fantastic. Okay, third one coming at you. This time, I want you to jump off and imagine like you're landing in a puddle. I want you to try not to make a splash. Make a ripple. Cool. Was there any difference in the movement depending on the cues that I used? Did you like one better than the other maybe? It's completely individualized and this is just the tip of the iceberg at what it comes to for this. But I just wanted you guys to maybe feel a bit of how different cues impact you differently. So going back quickly into this coach communication loop, I want you to know when to use cues because certain cues are more beneficial in different ways, just like we went to internal versus external. Okay, so we know that the external cues are far superior to internal cues when it comes to movement performance. That is in the moments before and during movement. Okay, but does that mean that you should never use internal cues again? No, I'm not saying that at all. There is a home for that. And so where that home is in the describe and in the debrief phase. So when you have more time to go ahead and talk about it and explain things, then you can go ahead and do that, okay? Now, what you want to be really careful is if you're only using internal language there, it's gonna be really hard to bridge the gap for your athletes to use external language elsewhere. External cues and analogies should only live in the cue and do phase. Internal language does not have a place there. Okay, this is really, really, really important. Again, internal language has a place in the describe and debrief. External and analogies should be in that cue phase. So how do you know when your cue works? We're gonna watch this really short clip of this national team moguls athlete being interviewed right after she finished her competition.
For you, Hannah, congratulations. A career night for you with that runner-up performance. How were you able to rise to the occasion under the lights here at Deer Valley?
I just focused on my technical cues. I was just trying to slap the backs of the bumps with my skis and extend off those jumps and hope it worked out.
So if you heard that, she repeated herself. She's going to slap the backs of the jumps with her skis. Okay. You know that learning happens when the athletes start taking ownership and they start repeating their own cues to them. All right, so to finish this up, last minute here, 4 key takeaways for you. Okay, so the first one focus, 1 cue at a time. We can't have them focusing on more than that. Use internal cues to describe, use external cues to coach. Third, keep your cues fit, familiar, interesting, and targeted. And finally, embrace the silent set, okay? We like to say, watch them move, watch them move, watch them move, and then coach. If you don't know what you're looking for, the best cue in the world isn't gonna help you. All right, so I hope you've had some light bulb moments potentially in this. And what I'm hoping to do is potentially just create a spark so that you can go ahead and kind of ignite a fire. And in doing that, there's some free resources from my mentor who I learned from, Nick Winkleman. If you go to his website or follow him on social media, he's got a free 2-hour webinar, slides, a book club, live coaching sessions. So if you're looking for a next step, he is your place to go to get more information. Thank you guys for this space. And Wayne, I'll go ahead and hand it back to you.
Nadine, great job. We don't have time for questions right now. We do have to transition back in, but I just want to share with you, I fortunately was off camera and muted because I was going through the activities as you were putting us through, and that ripple was more of a dead thud. So much so that my dog started to bark. So yeah, my days of being a gymnast are long, long past. So great work, Nadine. Great to see you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Wayne.